Let's get physical. It's Jordan here, back again with this month's update on all the physical releases coming to PlayStation and Xbox consoles. Yes, it is a bit of an awkward one now, considering Sony have announced an end to physical PlayStation discs in 2028. So, well, where do we go from here? Of course, we're still going to fight it tooth and nail. Make sure Sony know you are not pleased with their decision. Make sure to sign the petition and make sure to join in on the protest from August the 23rd until the 30th. A week of not turning on your PlayStation. But aside from that, what do I do with this video series? Should I continue it until the bitter end, the very last drips of releases, or should I cancel it out of protest? Personally, these videos leave me out of pocket each month. I've only kept them going for you guys as a service and in the hopes that maybe it would grow, but in that case it would need to surpass my Switch weekly videos to do that, and that was never likely. But like, now what? Let me know your thoughts. I really have not decided. I can't decide. Maybe I will put a poll in the community post section thing, okay? So look out for that. And also a second thing regarding learning about what is and is not on a disc. Often that information comes very late in the day. Yes, some box arts do say a download is required, but what kind of requirement? For what? For the single player or for the multiplayer? Like, it's really hard to find this out making these videos so far in advance. With so many releases to research, it is an absolute mammoth project for Tim each and every month just to make this thing happen. So it's really difficult for us to point things out like that. I do highly advise you guys follow Does It Play. If you're ever worried about a release, they will be able to tell you the lowdown on patches and data and stuff like that, which often comes out after release, the luxury that we do not have making these videos. They have that benefit, we don't. And obviously, people in the comments, if you know, if you've seen that information, let other people know, okay? In a nice way. Don't be a prick to me about it, okay? Because it hurts my feelings. Alright, this month's PlayStation and Xbox releases. Beast of Reincarnation is releasing on the 4th of August for Xbox and PlayStation 5 worldwide. Starting the month off with a huge one, Game Freak's first major project outside of Pokemon in quite some time, swapping the beloved colorful monsters for a post-apocalyptic Japan where humanity's last hope rests with Emma and her loyal dog Ku. The interesting twist is that combat is built around controlling both characters together, blending real-time swordplay with command-based abilities for Ku, rather than a traditional Souls-like. It's also become one of the year's more intriguing wildcards. It's from Game Freak, and because it's the real chance in years to see what the studio can do when it isn't making Pokemon on a yearly basis. And my executive producer, the Nemo6, he's chosen this as his pick of the month. Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls is releasing on the 6th of August for PlayStation 5 worldwide. Marvel hands the reins to Arc System Works for this one, bringing together superheroes in a 4v4 tag fighter that looks very bit as bold and stylized as you'd expect from the creators of Guilty Gear. Rather than aiming for canonical Marvel style, characters have been reimagined with new designs inspired by anime, while combat focuses on constant assists, team combinations, and on-screen filling supers. It is a fascinating change of direction for Marvel games, and arguably more bold than Capcom's truly amazing and beloved crossover fighters. One to watch, and my executive producers Dane Wilkinson, Jeddah Crow, and Jimmy A. Guerrero, they've chosen this as their pick of the month. The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu, Deluxe Edition, a 4-player co-op horror game inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, sending an expedition deep into a South American jungle in search of a legendary underground city. The main game mechanic is that the deeper you venture, the less you can trust your own senses, with paranoia and hallucinations causing players to see different enemies, environments, and even each other, making communication more vital than a standard co-op. And my executive producer Viz has chosen this as his pick of the month. Beneath is releasing on the 11th of August for PlayStation 5 in North America. It's already available in Europe. Another Lovecraftian title, Camel 101's psychological horror shooter follows a veteran diver Noah Quinn after an expedition leaves him trapped beneath the ocean, battling grotesque creatures while slowly questioning whether what's happening is real. Rather than leaning entirely on jump scares, the game mixes survival horror with old-school FPS gunplay, drawing obvious inspiration from Fear and BioShock. Being stranded at the bottom of the ocean should be terrifying enough though. Unfortunately for the developers, the reviews have been even scarier. Hell Let Loose Vietnam. Releasing on the 13th of August for Xbox and PlayStation 5 in North America and Europe. The Hell Let Loose series leaves the battlefields of World War II behind for Vietnam, but the core philosophy has not changed. 50 versus 50 battles, still revolving around communication, logistics, and squad leadership rather than individual kill counts, with new additions including helicopters, patrol boats, tunnel networks, and dense jungle environments that change how battles unfold. The launch was also pushed back following a large open beta, with the developers citing player feedback and additional polish as the reason for the delay, which is always nice to hear, maybe. If nothing else, one hopefully the fans are looking forward to, and it's a welcome reminder that realism doesn't always have to involve Normandy. Panzer Knights Commander's Edition is releasing on the 13th of August for PlayStation 5 in Europe. This expanded console release brings the anime-inspired tank action game to PlayStation, combining arcade-style vehicle combat with RPG progression and visual novel storytelling. Rather than aiming for military simulation, it leans fully into fictional warfare, letting players command customizable World War II-era tanks while building relationships with a colorful cast of commanders between missions. If you like the idea of an edgy Girls und Panzer combined with an action RPG, well, look no further. There's not much else like it, and my executive producer Firm returns. He's chosen this as his pick of the month. And if you want it or any of the games featured in this video, then check the links down below in the description and pinned comment. I have linked to VGP Video Games Plus, who are a fantastic company with free worldwide shipping on orders over 75 Canadian bucks, like 55 American dollars, and any purchase made via those links helps support me, this channel, this series in the best way possible. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. EA Sports Madden NFL 27, releasing on the 13th of August for Xbox, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch 2 as a game key worldwide. Another year, another Madden, though this time EA has put particular emphasis on overhauling AI decision making, player movement, and coaching systems rather than simply updating the rosters. As always, the biggest debate probably won't be what's changed, it's more like, has enough changed? Scott Pilgrim EX, releasing on the 14th of August for PlayStation 5 and Switch in North America and Europe. Already released physically through limited run games, Scott Pilgrim EX now gets a wider retail release. Rather than revisiting the original beat-em-up, Tribute Games has created an entirely new adventure set in Toronto, complete with 4-player co-op, RPG progression, and an all-new story approved by the series' creator Brian Lee O'Malley. After spending years trapped in licensing limbo, the original game eventually made its long-awaited return. Now, Scott Pilgrim is back for another round, and thankfully, the reception suggests this encore has landed just as well. And my executive producer, Nerdy Sean, he's chosen this as his pick of the month. Blood Refreshed Supply is releasing on the 14th of August for PlayStation 5 in North America and Europe. One of the great cult boomer shooters of the 90s finally gets a physical release. Night Dive Studios modernized Monolith's gloriously over-the-top horror FPS with widescreen support, higher resolutions, restored cutscenes, online multiplayer, and a sizable list of quality of life improvements. For years, Blood felt like a forgotten member of the Build Engine family. Thankfully, Caleb and his Pitchfork have finally escaped PC purgatory, much to boomer shooter fans' delight. And my executive producers, Mr. Awesome and Instacritic, they've chosen this as their pick of the month. JDM Japanese Drift Master. JDM fully commits to Japanese car culture, sending you across a fictional prefecture inspired by Honshu's mountain roads in a story told through manga panels. Licensed manufacturers including Honda, Mazda, Nissan, and Subaru all feature, but the real draw is mastering long controlled drifts and tight mountain passes rather than simply chasing lap times. This looks like a real passion project and has received really well reviews on Steam. It's also always nice to see a racing game remember that driving can be about style just as much as speed. Sudden Strike 5. This is already available in Japan, but now it's arriving in the West with a Deluxe edition, bundling the base game alongside 6 camouflage skin packs covering 83 vehicles, 2 exclusive multiplayer maps, and the original soundtrack. The game itself continues the series' emphasis on tactical World War II battles, rewarding careful positioning, reconnaissance, and combined arms strategy over simply producing the biggest army. It is the sort of strategy game that politely reminds you every terrible decision was entirely your fault. Mortal Shell 2, releasing on the 20th of August for PlayStation 5 in North America and Europe. Cold Symmetry's sequel looks considerably more ambitious than the original, expanding into a larger interconnected world while keeping the series' signature mechanic of possessing fallen warriors, each with their own weapons, abilities, and fighting style. Early previews have highlighted a much faster, more aggressive combat system, with firearms and finishes sitting alongside the deliberate melee that defined the first game. Judging from reviews, the original had great ideas hiding beneath poor execution. Mortal Shell 2 looks determined to prove there was something special under the surface all along. Time will tell though, and my executive producer, D's Nuts, has chosen this as his pick of the month. The Witcher's Bakery is releasing on the 20th of August for PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo Switch 2 as a GameCube Boo in North America and Europe. After first launching digitally earlier this year and delayed physical release from a few months ago, it's finally coming out this month. Rather than running a conventional cafe, you bake enchanted pastries that can subtly change the lives of your customers, with each recipe unlocking new stories and helping guide a cast of troubled characters towards different outcomes. Turns out, a warm loaf and a bit of magic can solve more problems than you'd think. Shame that real bakeries don't work like that. Greggs, why can't you have a magical sausage roll? Or maybe they do, because they are quite addictive. Super Bomberman Collection is releasing on the 25th of August for Xbox, PlayStation 5, Switch, and Switch 2 worldwide in various locations. It's quite complicated, but I made a video about it. Konami celebrates over 40 years of Bomberman by bundling together a huge slice of the series' history spanning the Famicom and Super Famicom classics. Bomberman quietly became one of gaming's longest running multiplayer mayhem series in the 90s, influencing countless party games along the way, before Hudson's collapse and eventual fall to obscurity, and of course the horrifying Xbox reimagining, which is not in this collection, you will be happy to hear. This collection is a reminder that the simple premise of placing bombs and running away very quickly is just about the most fun you can have in video games. Wonderful to see them all back. Please re-release Saturn Bomberman next. And my executive producer Dave Hurstwaite and me, Jordan, it's our pick of the month. Star Wars Zero Company is releasing on the 27th of August for Xbox and PlayStation 5 worldwide. Developed by Bit Reactor, a big money attempt at turn-based tactics Star Wars. Rather than controlling Jedi, you recruit and customize a team drawn from across the galaxy, following an elite squad operating behind enemy lines during the Clone Wars, building relationships between soldiers whose abilities become more effective as they fight together. With veterans of XCOM leading development, the tactical pedigree behind this one is difficult to ignore, potentially enough for tactics fans who don't even care about Star Wars. And my executive producers, Vay, Wixit, and Madhawk110, they've chosen this as their pick of the month. Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy is releasing on the 27th of August for Xbox and PlayStation 5 in North America and Europe. Big hype for this one. While we've not played the first, some important recaps I found is rather than continuing Amicia and Hugo's story, Resonance travels 15 years further into the past to follow Sophia, the smuggler introduced in A Plague Tale Requiem. Blending exploration, environmental puzzles, and combat with a stronger focus on ancient Minotaur mythology, the game explores Sophia's earlier adventures and the origins of several mysteries only hinted at before. This one could be a big one. Lunar Abyss is releasing on the 27th of August for PlayStation 5 in North America and Europe. One of the year's more distinctive first-person shooters, Lunar Abyss blends fast-paced gunplay with fluid platforming as you descend into a vast underground megastructure in search of a long-forgotten colony. Beneath the action sits a surprisingly story-driven experience, with prisoners forced to go ever deeper into an alien world that seems determined to keep its secrets buried. Rather than simply throwing waves of enemies at you, exploration and movement are just as important, with grapple points, bullet hell patterns, wall running, and enormous surreal environments giving it a style somewhere between Ghost Runner and Metroid Prime. Aggelos 2 is releasing on the 27th of August for PlayStation 5 and Switch in North America and Europe. 8 years after the surprise success of the original, Aggelos 2 expands the formula into a much larger Metroidvania while retaining its unmistakable 16-bit inspiration. Exploration stretches across 2 interconnected realms with new weapons, magical abilities, and hidden routes, encouraging plenty of backtracking in the tradition of the genre, leaning further into the Wonder Boy influence that made the first game such a pleasant throwback without simply copying it. And my executive producer Juice250 has chosen this as his pick of the month. Brigandine Abyss is releasing on the 27th of August for PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2 as a GameCube. Boo! Although in Asia, the Switch 2 is a proper cartridge, but that's for another video series. The Brigandine series returns with its first brand new entry since The Legend of Runersia, once again blending grand strategy with turn-based tactical battles. Set in an entirely new world, you will choose from one of 6 nations, recruit and evolve monsters, build your forces, and fight across classic hex grid battlefields, while the new mission mode opens the door to 24 playable factions with their own victory conditions. Brigandine has always occupied a rather nice niche following and playing similar to Fire Emblem and Romance of the Three Kingdoms, not as well known as either, but quietly building one of the more devoted cult fan bases in tactical RPGs. And my executive producers Adamantium, Jennifer M, and Alexander Cato, they've chosen this as their pick of the month. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2 is releasing on the 27th of August for Xbox, PlayStation 5, Switch as mostly a download, and Switch 2 as a GameCube. Boo. After years and years of rumors and wishful thinking, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots finally escapes its PlayStation 3 exclusivity as the centerpiece of this Master Collection Volume 2. It is joined by Peace Walker, meaning almost the entire mainline Metal Gear saga can now be played on modern hardware. Konami also included some bonus material, including the graphic novel and archival content, but the star of the show is Metal Gear Solid 4. Wait, what? Tim, you're forgetting about Ghost Barball, the Game Boy Color game. Surely that's the star here. Anyways, for many fans, Metal Gear Solid 4 represents Hideo Kojima at his most unapologetically cinematic and, shall we say, unhinged. It famously held the Guinness World Record for both the longest individual cutscene and the longest continuous sequence of a cutscene in a video game. But despite all the memes, it's also difficult to overstate just how important Metal Gear Solid 4 was in 2008. This wasn't simply another sequel, it was the culmination of 2 decades of storytelling, finally bringing Solid Snake's journey to a close with a level of ambition and bizarreness that few developers would even consider to attempt today, or even before. It's madness. Whether you loved every minute of it or thought Kojima needed several more editors, there's little argument that it remains one of the most defining and special games to have ever been made. We're talking about Ghost Barball, right, Tim? Anyways, my executive producers, John Jamin, Chase Amine, and my man Tim, you won't be surprised to hear they've chosen this as their pick of the month. Captain Tsubasa World Fighters is releasing on the 28th of August for Xbox, PS4, PS5, and Switch worldwide. Following the success, in quotation marks, of Rise of New Champions, World Fighters builds on the series' trademark blend of arcade football and over-the-top anime spectacle. Alongside a new story mode, expanded online features, and a larger international roster, matches once again revolve around spectacular special shots, acrobatic tackles, and impossibly dramatic last-minute goals, rather than anything resembling real football. Trying to compare Captain Tsubasa to FIFA, well, that just misses the point. This is football as remembered by 12-year-olds, and it's all the more entertaining for it. Little Kitty Big City is releasing on the 28th of August for PlayStation 5. It's already out on the Switch in North America and Europe. Award-winning and overwhelmingly well-received on its digital release, possibly the best cat simulator you could own. Rather than racing to get home, you are encouraged to spend your time causing as much harmless chaos as possible, knocking down flower pots, stealing food from unsuspecting humans, collecting hats, and befriending the city's ever-growing cast of animals. It turns out feline curiosity is considerably more entertaining when somebody else's sofa is getting scratched up. Faith, the Unholy Trilogy, is coming on the 28th of August for PlayStation 5 in North America and Europe. It's already out on Switch. One of indie horror's biggest cult successes finally arrives physically on PlayStation 5. Inspired by the Atari 2600, Faith deliberately pairs incredibly simple pixel visuals with unnervingly authentic rotoscoped animation, distorted audio, and religious horror, proving the atmosphere doesn't need photorealism to get under your skin. The collection includes all 3 chapters, along with the developer commentary and extra content, so well worth looking into even for those just curious. Wanderstop is releasing on the 28th of August for PlayStation 5 and Switch 2 on a proper cartridge in North America and Europe. When the creator of The Stanley Parable and Gone Home announced they were working together on a cozy tea shop simulator, that wouldn't have been everyone's first guess, yet beneath the peaceful routine of brewing tea and meeting travelers lies a surprisingly personal story about burnout, identity, and the pressure we place on ourselves to always keep moving. Sometimes the most radical thing a game can ask you to do is pop the kettle on. Toaplan Arcade Garage Kyukyoku Tiger-Heli is releasing on the 29th of August for PS4 and Switch in Europe. Yeah, PS4 release, guys, we're still counting those. Already available in Japan and via limited run games in North America, this latest entry in M2's excellent conversions preserves 3 formative helicopter shooters, Tiger-Heli, Twin Cobra, and Twin Cobra 2. Alongside the arcade originals, M2 has once again packed it with the usual wealth of extras, including training modes, online leaderboards, different ports of these games, museum content, lots of customization. They may be a bit classic for most arcade shmup fans, but they play well even to this day. Toaplan Arcade Garage Flying Fire Shark is releasing on the 29th of August for PlayStation 4 and Switch in Europe. Joining Tiger-Heli is Flying Fire Shark, another of M2's superb preservation works finally reaches Europe with Fire Flying Shark. Rather than a broad compilation, this collection celebrates 2 of Toaplan's defining vertical shooters, Flying Shark and Fire Shark, complete with their regional arcade variants and console ports. As always, M2 round things off with extensive training tools, replay features, developer material, and some of the finest emulation in the business. These collections aren't just about playing old school shooters, they're about preserving them properly, and few studios do that better than M2. Keylocker turn-based cyberpunk action, releasing on the 31st of August for PS5 and Switch in Europe. From the creators of Virgo vs. the Zodiac, Keylocker imagines a cyberpunk world where music has been outlawed, leaving singer Bobo to fight back against a regime that controls sound itself. Battles mix traditional turn-based commands with rhythm-based timing mechanics, while your choices throughout the story influence both the narrative and the city's different factions. It is a surprisingly original take on the genre, wearing its inspiration from Mario and Luigi RPG series and Chrono Trigger proudly, apparently. Sounds interesting. The Axis Unseen, releasing on the 31st of August for PlayStation 5 and Switch in Europe. Created almost entirely by former Bethesda developer Nate Pirkipile, I don't know how to say your name, I'm sorry if I butchered that. A heavy metal horror open world hunting game with a supernatural twist where you stalk creatures drawn from folklore using elemental arrows, monster blood trails, and enhanced sensors in a landscape inspired by Nordic mythology. The soundtrack also has a particular draw featuring ambient metal from the guitarist from ISIS wait, what? From ISIS? Anyways, it shifts dramatically as you explore. This feels like a super specific release, and it is going to be someone's favorite game, I'm sure. House Flipper Remastered Collection, 31st of August for PS5 in North America, with Europe following later on. What started as a surprisingly modest indie simulator has become one of the genre's biggest success stories. House Flipper Remastered Collection bundles the base game together with every major expansion, including Garden, Luxury, Pets, Farm, and Dine Out, while refreshing the visuals and introducing a host of quality of life improvements. Early Steam reviews have been poor, with criticism largely aimed at the new lighting and technical issues rather than the core gameplay itself, so whether this can be patched to meet the expectations of the original has yet to be seen. But disappointing for the people excited about the remaster. Hopefully the PS5 version is okay. Okay, quick mentions to some delayed releases. Either they were supposed to release before and didn't, or have released in other regions before and are now releasing in a different region. Starship Troopers Ultimate Bug War, Xeno Crisis, Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown, Aero 2, Gothic Classic. Alright, limited run games. They have Silent Hill The Short Message. Pre-orders for this end on the 9th of August for PlayStation 5, one of Konami's more unusual limited run releases. Silent Hill The Short Message receives a physical edition after launching as a free PlayStation Store exclusive in early 2024. Lasting only for a couple of hours, it follows teenager Anita through an abandoned apartment block while exploring themes of bullying, social media, and self-image, all wrapped up in the series' trademark psychological horror. It marked the first brand new Silent Hill game, released in over a decade at the time, acting as a testing ground for the franchise's revival before Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill F. free games rarely end up with collectible physical editions, but then again, Silent Hill has that pull, and I imagine it will sell well. And my executive producers, Mr. Lee from Eastern NC on eBay and Punky Dooster, they've chosen this as their pick of the month. Heart of the Forest pre-orders end on the 16th of August for PlayStation 5. Wales Interactive team up with indie studio Trapped Predator for this interactive psychological horror, following a group of students who hike through Germany's Black Forest and they quickly descend into a fight for survival rather than relying on action. The story unfolds through player choices with fear, trauma, and fractured relationships determining who makes it out of the woods alive. The Black Forest has inspired unsettling folklore for centuries and still seems to have a few stories left to tell. Alright, super rare games. Platypus Reclayed is shipping this month on PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch, reviving the wonderfully odd claymation shooter first released on the PC and PSP over 20 years ago. Every ship, enemy, and explosion was sculpted from real modeling clay before being digitized. It has a handmade look that still stands out in a genre usually focused on pixel art. This updated version adds widescreen support, modern presentation, and a handful of gameplay refinements while preserving the original's vibe nicely, and my executive producer Brent McLean has chosen this as his pick of the month. Alright, the imports, Play Asia territory. If you want to import any of these games, you can do so via Play Asia, and if you click my Play Asia link, like click mine, okay, don't click anybody else's because it can mess things up, alright? If you click my link and only my link, you can get 5% off anything if you use the discount code Jordan2026. Cotton Rock With You is releasing on the 6th of August for PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan. Successor's long-running Witch returns in the latest entry in one of shoot-'em-up's oldest surviving series. The franchise's trademark blend of colorful fantasy, giant bosses, and fast-paced horizontal shooting remains, along with introducing a partner system that lets players switch between characters on the fly, each bringing their own attacks and abilities to the table. It looks every bit as charming as fans would hope. Few shooters can claim a history stretching back as the early 90s, fewer still have managed to do it with this much personality. And my executive producer Cartoon Soren has chosen this as his pick of the month. Fallen Legion Revenants, the Legendary Edition, makes its way to Asia with all post-launch content included on the disc, which will be a big plus for preservationists. Set in a world consumed by poisonous miasma, it combines visual storytelling with real-life, side-scrolling battles, where perfectly timed attacks and defensive counters are just as important as assembling the right party of exemplars. It is an unusual mix of genres, but one that gives Fallen Legion an identity of all its own. Starsand Island is releasing on the 20th of August for PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2 in Japan and Asia. Touted as one of the year's coziest life sims, discover a tropical island where farming, fishing, animal care, and building relationships all take center stage. Rather than simply following the usual farming formula, the game puts a greater emphasis on exploration, customizing your home, and shaping island life alongside its colorful cast of residents, all wrapped up in a bright anime-inspired presentation. Steins Gate Reboot is releasing on the 20th of August for PlayStation 5, Switch, and Switch 2 in Japan and Asia. This is coming to the West at a later date. One of the greatest visual novels ever made returns with Reboot, a full Unreal Engine 5 remake of the time-traveling sci-fi classic. Rather than rebuilding the original 2009 release from scratch, Majors has confirmed it's using Steins Gate Elite as its foundation, a decision that sparked concern among fans, as Elite condensed and altered parts of the original script to fit the anime. The hope that the new visuals will be matched by a story that preserves what made the original so special. Well, that's kind of been dashed, sadly, but they are adding more stuff, more story content to tie things together with the science adventure series. We'll have to see how it turns out. And my executive producers, Abs, Ghost Bune, Sora Cat, and Big Bruno, they've chosen this as their pick of the month. Pizza Delivery is releasing on the 27th of August for PlayStation 5 in Japan, a narrative exploration game where every stop on your route introduces another memorable character with their own story to tell, as you drive through its quiet, dreamlike world, delivering pizzas and solving light environmental puzzles. Middling reviews, maybe better to spend your money on actual pizza instead. You might enjoy that more, but who knows. PATLABOR, the case files, is releasing on the 31st of August for PlayStation 5 in Japan and Asia. The long-awaited return of mobile police PATLABOR. This is a fully fledged 3D action game letting players relive iconic moments from the anime from both sides of the conflict. Main missions put you in control of Special Vehicle Section 2 and their iconic Ingrams, while another side missions lets you experience events from the perspective of rival pilots with more than 20 labors to pilot. These are words I don't understand, including the Griffin and Type 0, plus a dedicated simulator mode for one-on-one duels and weapon training. This is shaping up to be a genuine celebration of one of anime's most beloved mecha franchises, rather than simply retelling its story. PATLABOR has always stood apart by treating giant robots as everyday police equipment rather than world-saving super weapons. Who knew? I don't know, it's the first time I've heard of it. And my executive producers Cole Animals and G Bautista 100, they've chosen this as their pick of the month. Japan are getting these releases, which have already released in the West, and they are getting these releases which will not have English. And there we have it for this month's physicals. There's no community spotlight this month because I am very busy. I'm about to take a plane to the UK. I've got stuff to do. But special thanks to my executive producers over on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Plus you watching right now, if you watched all the way through, you're a legend as well, and I want to know who you are. Please leave me a thumbs up emoji in the comments so I know you watched all the way through. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. Take care.